Hey y'all, it's my review for the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 15, Episode 10. Full disclaimer, I'm currently sick right now. I just dragged myself out of bed to do this review. There are no off days for content creators. So I'm gonna white knuckle through this and yeah, let's get into the episode. So the episode opens and it's the Thanksgiving holiday and we're just getting a montage through all the ladies to see what they're doing to celebrate. We then fast forward to an event that Ralph and Drew are hosting at their house. Turns out it's going to be a dinner that's going to be cooked by the men with assistance, of course, from professional chefs as they cook for their ladies at the table. Their idea for this is for all the ladies to get together before their trip to Portugal. Now Ralph is looking particularly fine in this scene, but let us not forget that he is an ain't shit N-word. And speaking of Ralph, look, the attraction just fizzled already. He's so patriarchal. See, yeah, the men, we all get along. It's the ladies who have the problem. Such a caveman. Drew and these confessional looks, make it stop. Get her a stylist. I know we got her a hairstylist finally, but let's work on them clothes too. Wow, so we see Candy's the first to arrive? That must mean she leaving early. Because, in the black community, if y'all didn't know, we get there early. That means we're leaving early too. We see Sonya arrive with Ross, they're looking good. And Courtney, hey! I can't do it today, y'all. My throat is a little bit sore. But she comes with her baby daddy and her ex, Bryce, who's in that group that I'm supposed to know of. Don't even get me started. Charay then arrives, and of course she didn't bring her man because, it's Martell. And that relationship ain't real. And speaking of fake relationships, in walks Kenya by herself. Now, I'm happy that she found somebody, but, he couldn't make it. He had to work. Side note, Sonya's husband, Ross, he is fine. Sorry, I'm just making an observation. Candy and her facial expression, she really need to fix that. Like Kenya, she's all in Bryce's face because I think they did a movie together, Twa, and she's being like, hey, I haven't seen you. And we see Candy at the other end of the table rolling her eyes. We then see Moneta and her dark white husband enter. Again, she really fades in the background, like her husband stands out more than she does. So the ladies are talking for a bit, and I love how Charay is asking Kenya where her man is. Charay, where's your man? And then she got the nerve to shade Kenya in her confessional. I swear, it's the pot calling the kettle black for me. Charay tells the table that Martell isn't feeling well. That's why he's not there today. Sure, Jan. All right, well, last but not least, in walks Marlo and with a date. The same guy that she went on a date with in a previous episode. Some of the ladies, they ignore Marlo, the usual. We cut to Kenya's confessional, and, I gotta be honest, Kenya, you're coming off a little bit as a hater. Like, his jacket ain't that ugly to me. He sounds so much like Peter Thomas. Now, of course, soon as Marlo sits down, she's being grilled by the other ladies on the new guy. I'm thinking she just needed a +1 for this event. I'm not sure if they're still dating in real life. It also turns out that Candy already knows Marlo's date. I'm guessing, they both work in the hospitality industry. Maybe they've just crossed paths. Ooh, a lot of shade from Candy in her confessional. I don't really think he's Marlo's type. She don't have sex, unless, you get her money. Whore behavior. Oh. So the topic of conversation at the table is Todd's movie that Candy is funding. They started casting, and Kenya's like, well, where's my offer? And, Drew on the other side, quiet. But, she's finding out more information about the movie, and she finds out that Drew has been cast. Kenya is gagged by this. We then find out the role that Drew has is this woman who is turned out by another woman. Is anybody shocked? Hands in the chat. Kenya's now saying that she should have been cast because she put threesomes on the map when Twa came out. I think this was 23 years ago when it came out? All the ladies are laughing, and then we cut to Drew's confessional. The shade is very heavy this episode. I'm liking it. But Drew shades the hell out of Kenya saying, have you found work since Twa? Now, Drew, this is another case of the pot calling the kettle black. Like, when was your last role? Because the only role you acting in is on reality television. And it's not that great. She really has the nerve to tell Kenya it's time to let the acting career go. And she's trying to pursue a music career, which she needs to let go. This is a very interesting brunch. I see salmon, shrimp, bacon, sausage. I guess people have salmon for breakfast. I mean, like salmon Benedict or something like that. but just not all together. But whatever, I'm hungry right now. Oh God, so Kenya's friend FaceTimes her at the table. I'm sure that wasn't orchestrated. But the first one that's excited is Monyetta. I feel like Monyetta and Kenya's friend have a better relationship than Kenya and the friend. Ooh, so the tea is hot. So when Kenya shows everyone Roy at the table, Marlo was like, oh, is that Roy? I used to date him. You know, the other ladies are foaming at the mouth from this information. Kenya then strategically steps away from the table now when Marlo says that. Now, I will say this is a little bit of karma Kenya's way because she definitely made it known to Charay that Martell was in her DMs. So now she got a taste of her own medicine from Marlo. So I'm not even mad at it. Okay, now Marlo, you didn't have to do that. Let me make sure his number's still the same. Yep, and as expected, production reminds us when Kenya was trying to get Candy to look at the DMs that Martell sent Kenya. Now, to be fair though, we see the DM that Roy sent Marlo, that was in 2018. So this was like, what, 4 years ago? So it's, you know, not a big deal. Kenya comes back to the table and the ladies are still being messy about the situation, but Kenya, she has a poker face and she's not really bothered by it. Now, she does throw some shade at Marlo, but I'm assuming Marlo didn't hear what Kenya said. She said under her breath for showing him what not to do. Well, it is nice to see all the ladies are getting along, and I do think that when all the ladies are together, it's more interesting. Atlanta, please keep doing that. Have all the ladies together, not separate. It makes for a boring-ass episode. So now they're checking on the men for a bit, and we see Todd standing next to Marlo's date, and they look like brothers. Go back and look at it, y'all. Like, he sounds like Peter Thomas, but he kind of looks like a tall version of Todd. We're back at the brunch table, and we see Charay tries Drew in front of all the other ladies. She leans in and says, oh, Drew, is the chef gonna get paid? She says this because Drew currently has a lawsuit against her from another chef that allegedly cooked for her, and Drew didn't pay her. Again, we're met with the pot calling the kettle black. Not Charay trying to call somebody else out for not paying somebody. That is rich. The theme of this episode, y'all, must be pot meets kettle because there's a lot of that going on. So Drew is telling the background of the lawsuit to the other ladies, and we found that this girl is suing Drew for $1,000. The other ladies are just like, oh God. Is she really going to use an attorney to like contest this? Because she's going to wind up paying triple that. Could you imagine? Girl, just pay the girl. Charay again asked Drew, is the chef getting paid? And Charay knows she's being messy. Why is she needling Drew right now? She's trying to get back at her because Charay is petty. Drew then just pays it with Charay and keeps it cute just so brunch isn't ruined. So they're talking about Portugal now and how they're all going to try to get along. Charay makes a comment that she's glad that Courtney's coming so she can deal with the crisis management. Kenya tries to throw some shade at Courtney, but Courtney throws it right back at her with her annoying laugh, kind of touches her. And they're going back and forth, and Kenya now says, well, I would appreciate if you don't touch me. I know you kind of touchy, but don't touch me. We ain't there yet. So they're kind of going back and forth almost until Drew steps in and says, well, you know, she's telling her your boundaries. I will say Kenya started first, and now she want to retreat once Courtney returns that shade to her. Thankfully, it kind of just dies down, and in Candy, we see that she's just ready to go. She's ready to be around her real friends. The camera even follows Candy as she's telling Todd that it's time to go. She's like, clearly we all know who wears the pants, and it's not Todd Tucker Burris. So next scene, we see all the ladies arriving to the airport. They head to Portugal. I just realized that actually the Real Housewives of Potomac went to Portugal, I believe, season 5? But anyway, we see there's a little bit of drama on the way there because Candy has food poisoning. And if you ever have food poisoning, it ain't fun. And she was blowing up that bathroom the duration of the flight. We see them all arrive, they're in the van together, and if Charay says this is a trip of healing one more time, like, girl, we get it. Speaking of Charay, we cut to her confessional, and it is definitely clear that she had a little bit of work done. And it hasn't settled yet. So the ladies arrive at their lodging, and the accommodations are luxurious, thankfully. I'm just glad Kenya is not in charge of this trip. Kenya should never be in charge of the trips. Ever. So the topic of conversation is the ladies are discussing their spouses. I think one of them joke about checking on the husbands, and then Drew chimes in and says, oh, check on Ralph too because he's in Vegas right now. And we found that he's in Vegas because of Magic Mike. I'm not sure the movie or the actual show that's out there in Vegas, but why? And again, does anybody know what Ralph does? All the ladies have a confused look on their face. He's probably out there cheating on her. And of course, it's another woman that wants Ralph to audition for Magic Mike. Drew. So we cut to some of the ladies checking into their rooms, and we see Monyetta and Drew talking. And Monyetta's talking about Africa, and Drew's like, I've never been to Africa. I've been to South Africa, but... oh, Lord. Not her pulling a Porsche right now. And you know production, production puts a map of Africa and then shows South Africa at the bottom. And then Monyetta didn't even bother to correct her. Some friend she is. I'm guessing in Drew's mind, and this is my opinion, when she thinks of Africa, she probably thinks underdeveloped, not South Africa where she's been. But that's just my hypothesis. We're now with Marlo and Sonya talking, and Sonya's just so far up Marlo's ass. Talk about choosing the wrong team. We're back with Drew and Monyetta talking, and Drew tells her she feels some type of way how Charay tried to call her out at her brunch the other day. Drew also says she thinks it's comical that Charay is trying to call her out for paying somebody, and I gotta agree with her on that. We cut to Kenya and Candy talking, and Candy just brings up, what Kenya thinks about Marlo dating Roy before, and Kenya says she is impressed, and she says Roy told her already, and it was nothing. Of course, this is followed by Kenya in her confessional, as she shades Marlo again for being a hoe. We're now with Sonya and Marlo talking, and Sonya's bringing up Kenya's hypocrisy on how she just had to let Charay know that Martell was in her DMs, but now that Marlo brings up that Roy was in hers, she's trying not to acknowledge it. Now, Sonya, this ain't your fight. I would just sit back. You and Kenya, y'all just getting along now. This is what we mean when we say you're playing both sides of the fence. On the other hand, though, I can see how somebody could be on Kenya's side on why she quickly went to Charay to let her know about Martell, because Martell publicly has a reputation, a really bad one. Unlike Roy, who doesn't have a reputation, to our knowledge. Damn, and not Marlo talking about all of Kenya's men who's ever been on the show. And production helps us out with this and shows all 6 men she's been with. And I will say the majority on the screen is given hired help. So next scene, we see all the ladies headed to dinner. They arrive, and the topic of conversation at the table, facilitated by Charay again, is, peace and harmony amongst the women. So now she wants to ask around the table, does anyone have any grievances with each other that they want to settle? Courtney decides to go first to address Kenya. As she's talking to Kenya, Kenya's looking at her reflection in her knife. Courtney wants to know why Kenya has a problem with her because she heard from Charay, the bone carrier. Production shows us a flashback of Kenya talking to Charay about Courtney, and I'm pretty sure Charay went right back to Courtney to tell her this. Kenya then explains her behavior at brunch and says, when you were touching me, it just seemed like you were being condescending. But of course she was, because she was returning the shade that you gave Courtney first. Look at me defending Courtney, of all people. So after that's addressed, we see Drew addressing Charay for trying to comfort her at her brunch. As she addresses Charay, she says she found out that she was actually talking about it behind her back. And she found that out from her family, Courtney, which I need her to stop doing. That girl is not related to you. But anyway, I do think Charay is in the wrong though, because why would you say at this woman's house, are you gonna pay the chef? That is clearly shade. Now, I do think Drew's putting 20 on 10 here by saying you're talking about a very serious situation involving my family. I'm like, girl, it's a chick that cooked for you and she wants $1,000 from you. Chill out. Charay's being very patronizing in this moment, but Drew, she's serious, and it looks like she's getting angrier. Instead of Charay just acknowledging what she did was foul, she decides to deflect and brings up what Drew said on the radio about Charay taking back She By Charay pieces from her. So now they're going all the way back to something that I thought they settled. The looks on everybody else at the table. I'm the same way. Like, can we please move on? Drew tells Charay that we already discussed this, but since you want to go back, she gets the other ladies to vouch for her, saying that she actually did confiscate the She by Charay merch from the ladies after the reunion. Like, Kenya chimes in, Candy chimes in. Charay is just lying. She's like, well, they got nothing to do with me. What? It has everything to do with you. Charay's just digging a deeper hole for herself when all she got to say is, you know what? I was being messy intentionally. My bad. So now some of the ladies are chiming in that they didn't really get any She by Charay merch. And then Charay says, well, Marlo got a bunch of stuff. She got a hat. She got some shirts. We then cut to the confessionals where we go down the line with the ladies to ask if they got any She by Charay merch. Nearly everyone says no except for Marlo, and in her confessional, she is wearing head to toe She by Charay merch. The hat, the Who Gon' Check Me Boo shirt, and I'm pretty sure the joggers. She is a mess, and I'm sure production put her up to this. They going back and forth again, and Drew is kind of giving it to Charay. And Charay, she's like, doesn't feel good, does it? And Charay, you just made yourself look bad because now it look like you being vindictive. This argument right now is at a stalemate. Kenya then tries to compare them as big sis, little sis. I can actually see that, Kenya, because they're both scammers. Two scammers cut from the same cloth. Oh, they're still going back and forth. It feels like it's been 10 minutes, y'all. Are y'all tired? Because I am. Yeah, so it looks like they're not going to come to a resolution. They put a pin in this argument. Charay looked like she couldn't care less right now. And then Kenya says she being a bad host, which I think is, again, the pot calling the kettle black. But we see the credits rolling, and Drew, she's actually upset. I'm not even sure if she's acting. She can't act that good, so she must be upset. She gets up from the table to go outside, and the ladies are urging Charay to go and apologize to Drew or go talk to her. So then we see the ladies following Drew outside the restaurant, including Charay, and that is where the episode ends. We're left on a cliffhanger. This was a much better episode than last week. I do think the ladies need to be more so in groups. It makes for a better episode. Look, I enjoyed it. I really did. I'm not bullshitting. I am kind of confused as to why Drew is so upset by this. It has to be something else that's going on in her life. Interesting. I'm sure it's about Ralph. But anyway, y'all let me know what y'all thought about the episode. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see y'all for the next episode. Bye.